As a part of my professional development and just thinking a little bit more about what I really care about, what is my unique brand that I bring to the table. At the end of the day, we can write a lot of code, we can build a lot of software. We also have to invest in building a brand that people care about, right? I'll say, like any company, hiring process is always going to be a work in progress, and it's always something that you have to constantly refine. I always like to be in a position where I can reach out to candidates. So I'm not going to send you a form letter and say, hey, sorry, you were rejected.
Hi, all. Good morning. So, the weekend is almost approaching, but before that, I have a new guest with us. Greg is all about software development. He understands that software development can be chaotic, but he has understood what it takes to make the process much more easier. He understands that you need to empower the team, define SANE processes, build good software, but the most important feature is to make customers happy because if they're not happy, your company is likely to fail. Let's welcome Greg on 10 Minutes of Hiring Wisdom, where he will tell us what it took to define this process for him and how it's been working out for him. Hi, Greg. How are you doing today?
Hey, it is so great to be here. Thank you for having me. And also,
Of
thank you
course.
for such a great intro.
Of course, Greg. So, Greg, I'd love to understand where did the idea of these four steps come from?
So, throughout my career, I'll say that I've spent a lot of time really thinking about what does it mean to be a software engineer, but more recently, what does it really mean to be a software engineering leader? And so, as a part of my professional development and just thinking a little bit more about what I really care about, what is my unique brand that I bring to the table, I came up with these steps as a means of articulating just how I thought about um, engineering leadership and the qualities that I think engineering leaders should really aspire towards and capturing it in my own way.
Okay, I'd love to understand because I think at first computer engineering, software engineering used to be a niche skill, but I think now it's the new hot skill that everyone wants to learn just because it's interesting to learn. There's so much scope and it brings a lot of money. But I'd love to understand how can one distinguish himself amongst other thousands of software engineers in a specific field?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and interestingly enough, I get asked that quite a bit. I would say,
Okay. Sorry, go
I'll
ahead.
say, sorry, I was going to say, I'll say one of the big things is that being willing to build a professional brand is an important thing, right? So at the end of the day, we can write a lot of code, we can build a lot of software, but we also have to invest in building a brand that people care about, right? Um, so we have to have a very clear idea of what our values are. And when we go to work with a company or when we're working on our own products, we have to really make sure that that brand aligns with the values of the company that we're either working for or the business we're trying to create. Otherwise, it's never really going to be a perfect fit and we'll just never find that fulfillment in our careers. Um,
Okay, I think you highlighted something. I just want to touch on that. You mentioned about values. I think at first it used to be like people wanting to make money, but now they want to feel that they're part of something bigger. And that's
mhm.
something that's so important. And I love that you mentioned that. And you can go ahead. Sorry, I was just very excited that you mentioned that.
No, absolutely. And, just going back to my team at Axel, that's one of the things that I really feel sets our company apart. When I joined the company a few months ago, the things that I was really looking for was, I wanted to be in an environment where there was a lot of trust, there was a lot of transparency, there was a lot of just people who are genuinely curious and people who want to actually make a change in the world. Right? And so working for a company that, or finding a company that really aligned with my values really made all the difference to me. And it transcended into just the hiring process in general, right? We found that, our engineering team, we're small and yes, we are growing. We are actually actively hiring this quarter. Um, but the fact that, we really leaned into the core values and ensuring that it was reflected in our hiring process. It was reflected in recruiting. It was reflected in all of the candidate experiences that people had, it helped us to really create a company that has a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds, but they all share these same common traits, these common values. And it creates an environment, where people have each other's backs. Everybody wants to succeed, and anybody will help anybody else, no matter the department, to be successful.
Okay, that sounds absolutely amazing. Just because you mentioned that the values translated into actually the hiring process, so I'd
Mhm.
love to understand how did that happen? How did you create a hiring process that was seamless, that made sure that the candidates were actually interested? Because these days you see a lot of candidates applying to jobs, but when it actually comes to hearing back from the recruiters, they're left on standing. So they don't hear back. They're like, okay, what did I do wrong? Where do I go from here? Is something that I can improve? So I think I'd love to understand what makes your hiring process so different from other companies that are hiring, and how can other companies learn from your process specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll say, like any company, hiring process is always going to be a work in progress, and it's always something that you have to constantly refine. But I will say that the key point that makes our hiring process successful for us is the fact that we put the candidate's needs first, right? One of the things that I've never loved is, this long cycle of trying to go through like all these interviews. I mean, I've been in situations throughout my career where I've been sitting in interviews for hours on end, and people are just talking about different things, and it's like, okay, this is great, but and so, like, you go through this hiring process for like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, you invest hours, and then at the end of the day, it's like, oh no, you just get like a form email that says, hey, we're moving with some other candidate. That's not really a good human experience. Or worse yet, you apply for a job, or you meet somebody, you talk to them, and then it just kind of like falls into this void, and you never hear from them ever again.
It's like
Um,
being stood up on a date.
yeah, exactly. But
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
for sure. And so, one of the things, like personally, what I love to do as a hiring manager is whenever we have to, people might not always fit the role, whether skills, value alignment, whatever it is. But I always like to be in a position where I can reach out to candidates. So I'm not going to send you a form letter and say, hey, sorry, you were rejected. I'm actually going to provide insight into, why we made the decision we made. Sometimes it's not a no. Sometimes it's just a not now because we're not ready for where you are in your career. But being able to create a connection with that person is really important. So that's, I think, where our process really stands out. We've also done a lot of work to just make sure that we've reduced the time to hire. So, instead of taking 6 to 8 weeks, how about we find a way to get all the data points that we need so that we can make our hires within 2 or 3 weeks tops, right?
I
So
think so.
that's the thing
I
that
th-
I love.
I
Really,
think one of the things that you mentioned that's something that's so interesting is it looks like a relationship at the end of the day. A lot of people are always looking for someone better, and I think the same goes for job applicants. A company will get thousands of applicants, but they'll be like, "Oh, there might be someone better," and by the time they find someone better, they might lose someone who is excellent for that specific role. So it's
Mhm.
interesting how a lot of companies do not realize the importance of creating a hiring process that's seamless and make sure that they get the best candidates. So thank you so much for sharing that, Greg. I can definitely see you embodying the transparency and the value that your company promotes, because I can definitely see the process that you have within your company is so transparent. And feedback, I mean, all of us want feedback at the end of the day. We're all humans. We want to improve. And if we're not getting the feedback, we don't know where we're going wrong. So it's great to see that hiring managers like you exist who are actually there to make a difference and are helping people find out their weaknesses so that they can prepare themselves for the next interviews. So thank you for sharing that.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course. So, Greg, last question would be what kind of positions are open within your company so people know what to and where to apply for?
Sure. So our website, axlepayments.com, on our careers page, we have some pretty aggressive growth plans for the next quarter. Um, we're hiring all across the organization. We're looking in sales, RevOps, marketing, of course, product and engineering. We're also looking to hire a lot there. So, we're looking for, on the engineering side, a lot of front end engineers, people who are specifically focused on React and TypeScript. We're looking
What about
for
Ruby on Rails?
Ruby on Rails. We're actually looking for a lot of folks who have experience with functional languages. So, like,
Hmm.
our platform uses on the back end a language called Elixir, which the Elixir community actually grew out of the Ruby community. So, for folks who may have fintech experience that may have worked in Ruby, but maybe not have worked in Elixir, there's a nice transition path for them. So, we're definitely aggressively looking for some really solid candidates that can come in and join a team that's really on its way up. We're growing quickly, and it's been a heck of a ride so far.
Well, everyone, you heard it from Greg. He sounds absolutely amazing. And if he is representing the company that he's working for, I'm pretty sure the company itself would be amazing. If you're looking to apply for different roles, please do you can reach out to me and I can definitely forward your resumes to Greg. But other than that, Greg, thank you so much for coming on the show. Your calmness, the way you spoke about your company, what you've learned along the way was absolutely insightful. It was amazing learning from you and your experiences.
Absolutely. And it was just so great being able to talk to you about this, something I'm really passionate about. So thank you for
Of
the
course.
opportunity.